Does anybody want to show me or volunteer to show their GitHub pages? Who's proud of theirs?
For which stuff?
For GitHub pages?
My GitHub page.
Remember pages.github.com?
Look at mine. That's the
You
last
said you
world.
look at my green, the wall of green.
I still.
Okay.
No, mine's really not. If
You
no
want
one else
to-
volunteers, I will volunteer.
Okay.
Look at mine.
Oh.
Oh, no. You're talking about the one that we made?
Yeah.
Oh, you'll go there and see nothing.
Okay. I'll go to Amir's.
Mir had a good one.
Yeah.
Whoa!
Whoa.
What is this?
So this is Amir's GitHub page. If I want to look at the repo, it's public. GitHub.com/ahekmani / and then that's the name of the repo. So here we have an assets folder, an index.html, this JPEG. What is this? We have this image, this index. Let's see, some assets with CSS and Sass. This is what's called a static web page. Have we heard of static versus dynamic web pages?
Yes.
A little?
No.
So a static web page is like GitHub pages. You have a directory. You might have some HTML, you might have some JavaScript, some CSS, but it's static. That's all it'll ever be. It might kind of change in response to a user through cookies, but really the files never change. What's being given to the user is always just this one directory. With Django, we've been making dynamic websites. I have this picture here. So a static website will just give the same content no matter what. A dynamic website has this extra layer. This is what databases look like. Databases, I don't know why they look like a stack of coins in lots of diagrams, but when we have a database, we can store data and retrieve data, and what a user sees changes depending on who the user is or what's in our database. And
So
in our
question, most
Yes?
of the processing done server side on the back end, or are there
server side on the back end.
are there any frameworks that actually retrieve data?
That's a
to
good
the front
question.
end and process it then on the front end?
Processing on the front end is the new like everyone wants to do the processing on the front end. We've been writing full stack Django apps. So with our dynamic website, we actually interpolate with Python, and we generate different HTML file depending on our database and the user's input. And generate a different HTML file depending. And we do this processing on the back end. Django takes care of this processing and actually generates HTML. Now, later on when we use React, and for your individual projects, you can use React and Django or just Django full stack. You've been learning this week to do Django full stack, and I would not ignore Django full stack, because if you have issues with React or hooking up using Django as an API, while that would be, if your website becomes the next viral website, it would be great if you have a React front end, because that processing power is offloaded from the server to the client, and the JavaScript generates the HTML on the client side. So whatever user is using, like their phone or their laptop, that's the CPU that's generating the HTML from just some data that Django will give. Yes?
So would the user experience any kind of difference in like the speed of the website? depending
The
on
user,
what-
yes. So the user will have issues if they're running very slow.
Like if you have a slow phone. or
Very,
something like
yes.
that,
If
or
you have a
something
very
like that.
slow machine, then you'll have issues. But that's generally not the problem these days.
Right.
From these, yeah,
And
it's
that's-
like the
and that's why-
traffic
and that's
and
why it's more becoming more popular
Yes.
to actually upload some of that onto the front.
that's why it's popular to do that processing on the front end.
Thank you.
Cool. I'm wondering.
But full stack Django and full stack framework doing it on the server side is still awesome. You can do a lot. You can do everything really. And with that, let's talk about everything. What do I mean by everything? When I say CRUD,
Update, delete.
create, read, update, and delete. I say that that's everything, but let's actually think about what is a CRUD app. A lot of times people say everything like is a CRUD app. Twitter is a CRUD app. This is a CRUD app.
Mhm.
That's a little misleading because while that's everything you might want to do to a database. Let's see. What's a CRUD? What's a popular website to use?
Craigslist.
Craigslist.
Let's not go there. So.
Makes me feel better.
Now, Craigslist is definitely a CRUD app because we can make our own posts. We can create a posting here. That's create. Obviously, we can read all of these. Once you have your own, you can then update your own posting and delete it if you need to. So Craigslist is a very, very clear example of a CRUD app. Very straightforward. I'm impressed. What about like a little more complicated app?
You said
Like-
Twitter, right?
Medium.
Medium? Or Facebook? So there will be many different models, not just posts, that you may need to have the user be able to create, read, update, and delete, but there might be a lot of models where you don't want the user touching them at all.
Right, like for a personal blog or something like that.
Yes, and there will be models that you might want to create but not update, et cetera, et cetera. But when you look at the apps online, they all are CRUD apps. Now, someone was asking yesterday about best practice, or was it yesterday? For routes. Now, if you were to write a Django app however you wanted, and you have full freedom in your URL path, this is the nested CRUD for today. You wouldn't have to, let me just comment out the new stuff. So you wouldn't have to do it this way. If you wanted to make a route that said edit / the ID, you could. And we did with the library example on Tuesday. That's not best practice because we have something called REST. Which stands for representational state transfer. What that is it's a set of guidelines through which we want to make websites work the same way so that they can talk to each other in a predictable manner, and we have less problems integrating our website with other services. These methods, like I said earlier, you have all the freedom you want in Django, and if you want to create a record with a GET request or create a record with a delete request, that doesn't make sense, but you could, right? You could make a URL in Django that would point to a certain path, and then once you get to your view, you could make a view that then says, well, if the request.method equals delete, I'm gonna create a new record in the database. You could do that, it wouldn't make sense, but you can. What's stopping you from doing that is that you wanna follow guidelines so that you're not really surprising anybody. And that's what RESTful routes are. So representational structure applied to web services. This is an architectural preference, but it's the best practice. We have our collection, so something like, in this example, in our nested CRUD, we have cohorts and students. So this would be slash cohorts or students. You have done this already, and then you'll have an ID to actually look at that item. And you can choose not to use this kind of organization, but it's best to use this kind of organization. And it's called RESTful APIs or RESTful routes. And you'll probably get asked about them in an interview at some point. The example for today, I've just gone ahead and done. And I'll show you what it's supposed to be, because I don't think you want to watch watch me go through it. Although I think you guys have already figured out how to set up a route. This is a little different because we have more than one variable here. We have cohort ID and student ID. And when we pass those in, we want to specify which is which. So in our template, when we make a link, instead of just something, before we had something like this. So slow. Before we had something like this. Oh, let me make it bigger. Oh, and like, and it could be full screen. Now, before we had something like this. That's okay if there's only one thing we're looking for. But now that there's two, we need to specify which is which. So that when we hit our URLs, it knows which one is which. The RESTful routes in a nested fashion are going to have the ID first, the identifier, and then slash the edit. And then if there are, there's a nested route, then you'll have the students inside this particular cohort. And so on and so forth. Does this make sense? This cohort, so cohort 2 / students / student 5. And then this just mirrors what we have over here. Again, this design pattern of actually nesting your routes, because you'll have nested, whenever you have a belongs to, that's the most basic database relationship, right? This belongs to that, or something has something ID in a column. You don't necessarily have to have nested routes, but if you do, you want to do them this way. Now, I'm just gonna visit the server so you can see what it looks like. the curriculum is again a copy and paste one. I would just copy and paste up to where it says nested CRUD, because this is all review. Here, this is just making the cohorts. When you get up to here, you start getting into the nested section. And then that's where you want to start paying attention because it's new. I can access a cohort. I can edit it. So doesn't it seem like overkill? Like when you go to a website, you can't normally edit everything. You can normally only edit your stuff, and then when you can, it's in a controlled fashion. This lets you edit, delete, create, update everything, and no website is really like that. But because once you can do that, you just can narrow down what you need and what you don't. So that's why we're having you do this, so that you have a working example of all the little pieces you might need. And then I have a link here for students in this cohort. And here we have the third cohort /students/new. And I'm gonna choose this cohort. And I have this here. I don't have a link back. That would have been nice. And I have this new student here. Now the final thing I wanted to go over before it would be fun to look at what some of you have done. Jesse had a question about forms or comment, and Ethan and John had some about their authentication. You got your authentication working. You're just talking about like the actually using it, right?
Yeah, authentication-based access.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not it's appropriate to have authentication
yes.
in every view versus building and then
so what I wanna bring across is, while some of the stuff you're learning obviously is Django specific, the larger structure of a route, a user hitting a route on your app, and then that route directing to some piece of code that will execute.
Yeah.
That is common for all web applications. And once you know that, you know them all in that sense. I should have found one to show you, but let's see. Now, in all these web apps are going to make these giant directories with all these files. But in here, we have our controllers. So this is organized. This is a controller will have different actions in the controller, which are like view functions. And just like Django, this will inherit from this Rails controller. Well, in Django we have,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
HTML in Rails, yes, it's called. It'll be in our views, and when everyone else that doesn't use Django is talking about a view, they mean HTML.
Gotcha. Yeah, Django has special.
And this is, and you can see it looks pretty similar. They have these question marks, this equal sign means it's interpolated. But once you do one of them, you can pick up another one pretty quick, as long as someone points out where those things are that you already know how to use. Wow, it's been a while. I'm trying to find the routes, because that's the most important part. Bin, DB. Huh. I'm gonna go in app, and then I'm gonna give up.
Modelers.
Not in controllers. Well, you have models. Let's look at the models. It looks very similar.
Yeah, really, really.
You can start to see you have a class, you have these associations. There's a different syntax in Django, but it means exactly the same thing. You have validations. This is some crazy stuff. All right. Oh yeah, okay. Where are the routes? They might have structured it a little differently. Let me just, there was a routes.rb. Oh, that's a shortcut. But they all work about the same.
Sure.
So you should feel good about being able to use Django, because that means you can use any of them.
Just the minor changes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I want to cover Faker.
Faker?
Faker. Let's
That's what I'm talking about.
do something a little fun. So Faker,
For randomizing data.
for making fake data. When we've been making, like, we've been going into the shell and making data manually, but we can use this library. There it is. Faker's big. Like there's Ruby. There's.
Didn't we already do this in the databases? And
Did we do this? Did we do Faker?
talked about it? There were links
We
to
talked
it.
about it. Oh, has anybody?
I haven't ever seen
Do we want to try it out really quick?
Yes.
Okay.
I used it for our data assessment 3.
Assessment 3. Okay. Awesome. Now, this is the wrong one. Is it? Oh, this is the wrong directory. It's okay. And I'm gonna go into shell. I'm gonna import my models from, what is it called? Alumni.models, import student and cohort. So now I should have both of those. And is this big enough? Oops. All right, so how do we use this? We need to pip install Faker. Oh great, I ran out of windows. Pip installing Faker. I think Faker might be included in Django extensions. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of that. Maybe I have to restart this shell. And from Faker, import Faker. I'm just gonna copy these two. I don't have to type it. And how do we use it? Fake name, fake address. And these will just keep changing.
That's cool.
So nice. So we have this library. I'm gonna look at my models. And so I need name, start date, end date. And these are just char fields. Okay. Now I'm gonna make it a little smaller. Can somebody help me write some seed code?
Seed.
Yeah. So
Oh,
Seed. Oh.
if I have cohorts and students belong to cohorts, which do I need to create first? Cohorts. So I'll have cohort name, and I'm gonna make a fake.word. Fake.word. Ooh, fake.word. And I have a start date. Oops. Start date equals fake.date. Oh. It'll be fake.date, and then end date, it will be the same.
It could be, the fake that date could be before.
Yes, let's be lazy and not care about that. And then, is that it? All right. And we'll save it.
Sweet.
And then we'll have a student. But we want multiple ones, don't we? Run a for loop. Okay. So for 10 students.
Okay, everybody knows what underscore means?
Yeah.
Okay, I know.
So underscore means it's a variable that you don't actually need to, or aren't going to use the variable itself.
Oh,
But the variable has to exist for syntax.
so you avoid the unused variable underline thing?
Yes.
Okay, great. I love knowledge.
This is the easiest way in Python to make a do so many times this thing.
You can use fake.first and fake.last.
Ooh. Fake.first name and last name. Oops. All right.
Ooh,
Anthony Kirby.
That's what it is now.
And the cohort, equals C. All right. Now I want to make a whole bunch of cohorts too, with students in all of them.
Yeah, maybe. The annotation.
Yeah, screw it all. Oh,
20
O squared, N squared.
That isn't squared.
Last, you have to actually save your student.
I have to save each student.
Yes.
Okay, so this code should give us. Let's open up our page. Oh, I'm missing a parenthesis. Oh, I am.
Closing parentheses.
Here? First one?
if student, class, first name.
Oh, this one is an invocation. Localhost 1000. Uh-oh, am I running my server? Oh, fake is not. Oh, that's because I had it in my file. I just wrote it right in my models file, and it's mad.
We have to.
Now it says, oh, models PY changed, reloading. I took out all that stuff. And I already have my database and everything running. / cohorts. And these are all my cohorts. Now,
Blasting.
uh-oh,
The cohort is not.
did I not?
Did you delete it?
You didn't import.
I didn't, oh, I restarted my shell. And I'm not using shell plus, so I have to import models, import student cohort. And then, I'll control U, paste. All right, now I should have all of these
Space Platoon.
Space Platoon from the Space Force.
That's a long time being in that class.
Nice. All right, so that's an easy way
20
to.
years. 20 years.
And Faker has
Is there a question?
a bunch of options. There's all these languages you can use.
Cool.
I want to say Esperanto.
Esperanto, is it there?
Yeah,
Oh
it
goodness.
should be.
Oh, there's no Esperanto.
That's
A language that never lived.
Romanian.
All right.
Fake barcode.
There's company.
Servers.
Yes, have fun with that while you do today's challenges, which I might have overloaded you with again, but I feel like it'd be good for you. So
Here.
beer ratings. We'll use nested resources to make a beer rating app.
Milwaukee's best.
Each rating will belong to a beer. And just like cohorts and students, we'll be able to modify ratings for beers. However, users should not be able to modify other reviews that are not their own. And I added this, make a search box to search for particular reviews or beers. If you can't do that, just move on to Meetup. Meetup is fun. Meetup. I'm not gonna make you do nested routes here, although you will have nested models. Since you might as well do nested routes, but what I want you to focus on is the meat of it. A join button. So you need to have a join button to join a group. And if you're in the group, you'll have a leave button to leave it. Yes. This was actually one of our assessments. But you have the whole weekend. And if you can, try to build those and have fun building like full stack Django apps, because you can do pretty much everything now. Now, Comcast is coming in 5 minutes, I guess. All right.
I forgot to hold check and take pictures.
Yes, the big check. But I definitely would encourage pairing today.
Yeah.
You can work alone on the weekend and do beer reviews.
Yeah. So let's go over the lecture first.
The
Review
lecture, the nested CRUD stuff.
Yeah.
Doing it route by route would be a pain. If you're
Maybe talking through it after we paste it, like
Yeah.
line by line.
Yeah, yes, definitely look line by line at anything you paste,
Yeah.
like all the time. However, For this assignment, I don't feel like you're gonna get as much benefit as you did last time, like learning how the routes and the views connect. If you're already good with that, then I would just look line by line as you paste, change things, try and see if things work the way you think they do.
And this is
Before
already-
you go on to beer ratings.
Okey doke. Sounds good.
You get that